change adaptation and the platforms, the governments, and the workers must all work together to reform the process of change to the labour market through social value. The alignment of employment as well as education can accelerate climate action and speed up the just transition towards sustainable communities. This session, Role of Platforms to Ensure Just Transition, aims to explore the best possible options for implementation and exchanging experiences. Please welcome with me our distinguished moderator, Ms. Fahmina Libehori, Head of JP Morgan Development Finance Institution, our distinguished panelists, Mr. James Partridge, HMT Exchequer Secretary. We have Mr. Samaila Zubaro, President, African Finance Corporation, and we have Mr. Ibrahim Salhan, CEO, eFinance Investment Group. We have, of course, with us Ms. Justin Nixon, Vice President, Corporate Social Responsibility and ESG IPM. And hopefully we'll be having shortly Mr. Jürgen Weiternick, First Vice President of EDRD. Thank you so much.
So good afternoon, everyone. It is my distinct honor to moderate today's Finance Day panel on the role of platforms to ensure a just transition. It's clear that this year's COP discussions have brought a just transition into sharp focus, and I'm pleased to have several distinguished government officials, head of multilateral development banks, and the C-suite of private sector companies to discuss this important topic. Just to set the stage and leverage the recent August 2022 UN report on just transition, it is clear that moving to a greener economy will require a change in employment profiles and skills, and also an evolution of industries and markets that are competitive in each country. Both national governments and private sector companies will need to work together to create programs, spur investment and training to make their economy transition to a low carbon base. There will also be an incredible opportunity to create new jobs and to invest in adaptation. An important component of this, of course, will be technology and innovation that we'll hear about shortly. So given this context, I'd like to start off with Minister Partridge. May I ask you to kick us off, as the UK has been an active partner in working with a multitude of stakeholders to drive climate ambition, and has been a strong component of the concept of country platforms, including through your role in the G20. What roles can contributing governments play as a part of a platform, and how can they specifically support a just transition? And I'd love your definition of the platform as well, so that we've got a lot of questions into that.
Brilliant. Hey, fantastic. My first event where the sound is working pretty well, so can everyone hear me? Thank you. Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure to be here. And on this incredible panel of private sector experience. Obviously, I am a government minister. I'm effectively, might say, a deputy finance minister for the Kingdom. The official role is Exchequer Secretary in the Treasury, which is the UK Finance Department. So obviously wanted to give you the UK government view on this really important question. So look, you all know this is a big challenge, and it's really important if we're to keep the 1.5 degrees goal within reach, which is easy, lots of difficult decisions to make. Lots of countries around the world are setting ambitious emissions targets. Their targets are all different, reflecting the unique policy pathways every country has to take to fight climate change. And meeting those targets will require a huge amount of finance. I think that's one thing we've heard in every session I've been in. Everyone knows the scale of the challenge, right? So the biggest challenge is bringing public and private finance together behind countries' ambitious plans in a targeted and coordinated way. And this is where these partnerships come in. So just energy transition partnerships provide a framework to drive ambition to help countries achieve their emission reductions in two ways. Firstly, by setting out the ambition in a clear, actionable way through an investment plan, And secondly, by matching their investment plan to a range of financial sources, both public and private, to realise that ambition. Now, if you want to realise that ambition, it has to be driven by the host country's own sovereign planning and decision making. Through investment plans that are developed in country to ensure that the level of ambition and the route to achieve it is aligned with their own specific circumstances. We're here in COP in a multilateral setting where all different countries meeting, but ultimately these things have to be driven by sovereign nations. Countries are on their own transition pathways, but some are at a critical point in their economic development. We're realising these plans can now have drastic impacts, such as in South Africa, where the UK announced on Monday a package worth up to $1.8 billion. And we must be clear that just energy transition partnerships are not a short-term trend, but a long-term policy and financing commitment that will bring lasting change. And to succeed, we need everyone to get behind them, governments, private finance, and philanthropy, so platforms to bring all these actors together. Which is why we've got such a range of speakers of it. Countries need to demonstrate a clear commitment to long-term policy reform to signal to investors that these are good, bankable projects. We've heard in all the sessions about the need to get more private finance. This is actually crucial. And if we commit and take the time and resource needed to make these an effective initiative with the appropriate scale and backing, we can take care of this element, which is obviously the just cause is doing the right thing. Across the range of tools and instruments offered under these country platforms, we can equip people with the resources and tools needed to be trained, be skilled, and realise a just transition. I know to my right, for example, someone who built a large company and skills. So our other panelists, this is a huge important area. And I know that the Egyptians, our brilliant hosts, are undertaking their own country platform venture with the EBRD, I don't think you're right. This is a country platform the UK is also supporting. The nexus of what we call water, food and energy platform tackles many of these critical issues, representing a major acceleration of Egypt's energy transition by shifting on a gigawatt scale from gas to renewables. Demonstrates how working with others, in this case the NPBs, can mobilise private finance for renewable investments. I think you may know that the largest solar project in Africa is in Egypt, and almost $100 million of it was funded by the UK. So the UK is pleased able to support the Rafi partnership development with private action, and so we believe that this type of platform-based policy commitment will deliver a sustainable, equitable transition for all.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your comments and having the group set up on the platform is partnership, it's a framework, and that vision of sovereign nations leading their own destiny and setting guidelines of what to do and then hearing about the UK's direct commitments. And that's it. So thank you so much for that. If I could then turn to Mr. O'Sullivan, could you perhaps speak to more Pan-African experience and challenges of climate change and energy transition in particular? What's been successful and where has the ANC played a role in trying to help this? Your institution is known as Africa's infrastructure solution provider, and how are you looking to climate-proof these investments as we move forward? How do you work with partners, and what are your thoughts about training and resourcing?
Thank you very much. Thanks for that very important and long question. I'll try and fit it all in. So I think the best way to start is to look at where Africa is in terms of, first, energy access. So energy access in Africa is very low, which is why we have the low emissions that we have. We have, on average, 180 kilowatts per hour consumption in Sub-Saharan Africa. That is about 1.3%, 18,000 kilowatt hour consumption in the States, and about 3.7 of that, about 50% of that in Europe. That's about 6,500. So when you look at these numbers and the fact that we have over 600 million people who have access to electricity, and we have about 970 million people who have access to clean energy. So you understand that for Africa, it's not really a transition to lower carbon-intensive energy sources, but more an access to energy in the first instance. That is not to say that Africa has no part today in achieving global net zero. In fact, we're already playing that part. The because Africa's forests today are absorbing 1,500 billion tons of carbon dioxide. That's about offsetting the emissions of 320 million pounds. And then if you also consider the fact that these forests are fast depleting because of growing population, and the fact that that's the main source of cooking for most Africans, you understand that there's a strong need for us to preserve those forests, to grow the forest again in a sustainable way, which is why conversations around carbon credits are so important. And conversations around generally poverty reduction and economic development is very important. Now, when we look at energy transition, talking about what is involved and where the challenges are, we have to make a point that Africa's energy consumption is going to grow because the population is growing. It's projected to grow from 20% of the world population today to 25% of the world's population. It's also projected to have the youngest workforce. So, for all of this to happen, we are going to need more energy. And if we also look at the scale of the need for resources and materials going forward for the energy transition to occur, then we know that there's a lot more resources that will be required from Africa. And what we are advocating is we need to look at the entire business model of the world as it is today and see how can we be more efficient in a way that Africa will develop, but will develop in a more sustainable way. We don't need to follow the path of what is happening before. We have significant renewable sources on the continent. We all recognize that renewable energy is one of the cheapest sources of energy, but the challenge is actually building them in the first instance because of the high cost and the fact that we have significant exposure to devastating impacts of climate without the capacity and resources to deal with it. So we need to talk about how can we have better access to finance, how can we have access to finance at a lower cost. Talking about what has worked, most African countries actually use renewable energy. If you check the energy mix in most African countries, it is renewable energy. Apart from South Africa, Algeria, and Egypt, most other countries have more renewable energy sources in the mix than fossil fuels. And in cases where they have fossil fuels, they also have a program for replacing them. So, for example, in Senegal, where they have usually discovered gas, they are thinking about changing coal-fired plants and fuel plants to gas-based plants. We are helping them there because we know that that will reduce carbon emissions, to reduce SOx and NOx emissions, it will reduce the electricity tariff in the country, and to be more sustainable going forward. We are also the first to build independent power plant in Cape Verde. There's a wind farm there, providing 20 requirements of the island. We're also building a wind farm currently in Djibouti. So to place a lot of imported energy from Ethiopia, and also fuel oil and diesel generators in the country. So if you look at the entire spectrum, Africans are using renewable energy sources, and they understand the importance of it, and they continue to be a part of the energy mix. But we are advocating that since we know that industrialization needs to take place in Africa to accommodate the increased population and jobs for the increased population, we need to look at supply chains differently. We need to look at, for example, if we take electric mobility, we know that we have about 600 electric cars now, so close to 8 million. But we need to go over 100 million going forward. If you imagine the scale of resources required for that transition to happen, then you know that we cannot use supply chains or invest as we currently do. We are looking at the fact that for most of the minerals and battery minerals are required going forward, a lot of that needs to be mined out of Africa. That mining should be done in a sustainable way, and there should be processing of those resources in Africa. If you look at the scale of minerals and metals for electric vehicles, we are told that it's 6 times more minerals and metals than for an internal combustion engine. We are told that it is 11 times minerals and metals for a wind turbine and a gas turbine. So just imagine the scale and the skills required for this. And most of these resources are in Africa. It do not make sense to ship those materials to one corner of the world and only to export them from that corner of the world back to including Africa, where we know we need a lot of stock of this goods. So the key going forward is how can we localize processing and industry in Africa in a way that the supply chains are more resilient and even the cost is more affordable for Europe and America. We're looking at how can we utilize the vast solar sources that exist on the continent. We are currently having 60% of the best solar sources on the continent, and less than 1% of that is built. The argument is we want to build those solar sources so that as our energy use increases, we're using those resources. But it can't be that we're going to import all those solar panels from Asia. It has to be that we use the natural gas that's in Africa, the sand that's in Africa, to build the PV panels that we would utilize. So for a lot of these things that we know are required for the energy transition, it is important that we take a step back and look at what is the carbon footprint that exists in the supply chain. How can we plan going forward, take decisions to reduce those emissions and to create jobs and prosperity in Africa? Because we can't just look at energy transition without looking at jobs and poverty reduction in the country. It is important that all of that is considered. Just finally, on the question about how we are looking at climate proofing infrastructure and project finance transactions. So we have recently launched Infrastructure Climate Resilience Fund. The purpose of that is to see how we can incorporate climate risk in fiscal infrastructure building. We know that Africa requires about $2.3 trillion for infrastructure. If you look at the impacts of climate and COVID, it's about $3 trillion. Now, most of that infrastructure is really built. We are advocating that in building an infrastructure, we make it climate resilient. And to do that, it's going to require additional costs. And so we are raising a fund to create a first loss from institutions like the Green Climate Fund, so that we can have commercial capital on top of that for co-investment in us. If you look at a typical road, the climate proof it is going to be 30% more expensive. So we're hoping that the force loss, the guarantees and insurance products that we procure will allow us to build that infrastructure. Like I mentioned, we are looking at solar seriously. We have recently acquired Lekela, which is the largest renewable asset company on the continent. So we're today one of the largest investors in renewable energy on the continent. And we intend to increase the pace of those investments over time. We currently have about 1.4 gigawatts of capacity. We're looking to grow that to 3 gigawatts in the first instance. So there is significant scope for us to grow renewable energy assets on the continent. There is significant scope to climate-proof infrastructure on the continent. We just need to find a way of financially innovating to reduce the cost of capital and to improve access to capital.
Thank you so much. I think you answered all my questions and went beyond. Thank you for really focusing on Africa's, the fact that we're not using the power or is needed. I used to use them also. I appreciate your references to the Lekela wind farm there, specific to renewable energy that you're doing, and for your call for action for financing, and also accountability of supply chains. Thank you for those comments. If we could then take a different tack and move to focusing on technology upskilling, and ask Justina Nixon to speak on IBM's experience in facilitating a just transition. How do you work with your clients in training their workforce and adapting to climate change? What solutions has your firm been offering to countries and companies as they adapt to the new realities of climate?
Yeah, so first of all, it's an honor to be here. I arrived earlier today, and I'm sure it's overwhelming for everyone as it is for me. But it's amazing the discussions that are occurring. We're a technology company, and this has been top of mind, a priority for the tech sector. But really, every industry is focused on this. How do you make sure your own employees are skilled, upskilled? How do you work with clients, but also society at large? So I can tell you, IBM is very focused on internally, how do we upskill our employees to help as we look into creating innovative solutions, technology that help clients with sustainability and other solutions. We also work very closely with clients to help with that skilling as well. But really, one of the major things we do is skill society at large with a focus on vulnerable communities. And last year, we made a commitment to skill 30 million people by 2030 globally. And we focus on communities that have been underrepresented in the technology field. We focus on women and girls. We focus on refugees. So really looking at communities that are being left behind, right? Being left behind with rapid technology advancements, being left behind because of climate change as well. And this is really all about the just transition. It's not enough that we are creating solutions and implementing those solutions, but how do we make sure that we're meeting the needs of those populations, providing the skills that they need, and giving them those job opportunities as well. So there are a few examples.
Your philanthropic efforts, or?
Yes. So I lead our global corporate social responsibility function. So our 30 million commitment is through our, really part of our corporate social responsibility and through our philanthropic efforts. But we do it through partnerships, right? So it's important to provide the skills, but it's also important to have those public-private partnerships. And the organizations that we work with are the ones closer to the communities. They understand their needs. We work with them to make it relevant for the community and to make sure that we are not just providing the skills, but we are providing job opportunities as well in those communities. And I think that's what's important. That's what's going to lead to social and economic mobility for those populations. So we work with partners, which is, the second most important thing, right? First, the investment in skills and platforms, and we provide the Skill and Grow IBM Skills Build platform, but also through really innovative partners, right, globally, that provide the in-person skilling opportunities and provide that connection to jobs as well. And that's where we can be really successful. So I have a couple examples that I wanted to share. So for example, in South Africa, we're working with Junior Achievement and Right Nose Code to provide STEM skills to young people. We have partnered with 300 universities across a number of countries in Africa where we are bringing those tech skills and those power skills as well to students so that they can be prepared for these jobs. And then we are working with FRF International in Malawi. And this is a focus on sustainability and how we work with smallholder farmers to provide access to digital tools and digital skills so that they can increase their crop yield and increase productivity. So this is another way that we are preparing these communities for these types of jobs. So, this for us is extremely important, but those public-private partnerships are critical for the success of skilling and upskilling and making sure that we are preparing people for the green economy.
Thank you so much. That's really helpful, actually, to get that perspective. And I appreciate the concrete examples you gave and the social partnerships that you're referring to. I mean, it's very clear that corporate philanthropy is now moving towards climate. And at JP Morgan, most of what we've done in climate is our business, but our corporate responsibility is also moving in that direction as well. So it's nice to see that alignment. If I could now move on to the role of telecommunications and payments to ensure just transition, I'd like to turn to Ibrahim Sakhan to provide your experience on how the sectors of the future will play a role in creating jobs and ensuring adaptation. Do you believe that we will have a fundamentally different economy in emerging markets in the future? And what sectors need to be most transformed to avail of climate's opportunities?
Thank you for being with us today. And as an Egyptian, we are proud in making you all here in Sharm el-Sheikh. And definitely, this topic is related to what we are doing since 15 years ago. We started the private investment company in built and operate what we call digital transformation solution at that time. And after that, the digital transformation being also a very important part for financial inclusion. And now both the digital transformation and financial inclusion is very important core for climate change. And from time to time since our journey, we succeeded to build and operate many solutions that affect the progress in many areas in the market. It's good for us to present to you some success stories and the effectiveness for climate change. We started build and operate what we call the hub for electronic payment, for collection and payment for the whole government, including the digital transformation for the financial physical budget for the Egyptian market for Ministry of Finance. And we succeeded since 5 years ago that we cancelled all the deals with the checks paper, and now all automated and all is digital orders for payment. And this is a huge change in the government for digital transformation to deal with the whole corporates and individuals. Now we are dealing with around 40 million Egyptian as a beneficiary for the whole system that we are operated. That's just this services is different services between paying taxes or customs or salaries, payroll or whatever pension and other initiatives for subsidies. If you will focus more and more for some projects, we started with implementing many platforms. This one of them is for what we call cash subsidy program. It's called the Takaful al-Karam. It's the first cash subsidy program initiated by the government and World Bank. And we are now operating since 4 years ago. And the number of beneficiaries around 4 million. 85% from them is women from Upper Egypt, from rural area, and they using now what we call a payment card, and this payment card from our system that covering the whole governorate, they can cash in or cash out from any cash access point that bringing cash or payment for them. And this card also is using for their services as long as it's health services or whatever other services during the hospital treatment or other things. And also for education for their children in the schools or the university to pay the fees. And this is a very good change for them, and that for the country and for those people. And also, we implement since 2 years ago what we call an e-commerce platform, specifically in agribusiness. And we built an ecosystem for agribusiness. This platform that handling more than 3 million farmers. Those farmers have a card and mobile, and now we changed the card to mobile, and they have all their payment through or subsidy through this card and mobile. And also we link the B2B agribusiness with our e-commerce platform, and those farmers also can using the platform for their produce. Definitely this program is a huge program because, as you know, the agri-business here in Egypt is very important. And now, from time to time, we change it more and more. And we have also another program for women. It's a gender program for the savings. And we go to the land and implementing whatever they needed as a culture for their saving. and implemented in a digital way. And now they using the mobile between them for their savings and definitely all this related with the banks. This is, we implement in the country what we call non-banking services to be banking services, non-banking people to be going more and more for the banking solution. This is one of the things that we are very successful in, and we're leading more and more a digital arm for the government and for the initiatives also from the private business. And definitely we have more than programs like this on other sectors, and we are willing to implement all those with our neighbors and our African people, countries that we are definitely needs to those solutions, and this is one of our vision in the near future. And definitely understand how all those solutions and what we implement is against or helping more and more for climate change and adaptation. Thank you very much.
No, thank you so much. I think that was really interesting to see how you're actually enabling the public sector in many ways to deliver a lot of its programs. We recently worked on one for the Egyptian government that funded the Higher Rima program, so I know the kind of key programs that they have for the country, and also the focus on agriculture, for example, which is definitely a sector that will need a lot of investment for adaptation as well. So thank you. And then last but not least, I want to turn to Birkin from the ERD, and thank you for joining us. I think in today's panel we've heard about the just transition in the context of moving to renewable energy and taking affected communities into account, but also the growing energy needs in Africa and in parts of the emerging world. We've also spoken about initiatives that help businesses and workers adjust to the impacts of changing climate and build resilience. What are your views and the actions that the ERD is taking in your projects to address these issues in your countries? And any examples that you can show?
Thank you very much, Farid. And ladies and gentlemen, if you don't want to leave, I can fully understand that, because you don't want to listen to someone who cannot even find a meeting room. And honestly, I think I saw all the meeting rooms within the last 30 minutes or so my step counter is doing really well. But to your question, Farid, just transition considerations need to be tailored, we believe, at the EBRD to the needs of specific countries and sectors. And let me start by highlighting some of the countries we operate in. You probably know we operate in countries from Central Europe to Central Asia, the Western Balkans, and the Southern and Eastern Mediterranean. And the EBRD regions have approximately 11% of global coal reserves, the majority, by the way, of which are located in Ukraine, Poland, and a country where I lived in for a few years, Kazakhstan. There are 240 coal-fired power plants across our countries, producing about a quarter of EBRD's region's electricity. And in some of EBRD's countries or operations, such as, for example, the Western Balkans, coal accounts for over 70% of electricity generation. So coal-related activities generate also significant employment across EBRD region, and they are at risk of being affected by decarbonization. So we estimate that more than 1 million jobs are directly or indirectly linked to coal activities. By the way, this will not be a plea towards coal, just setting out the difficulties. So while coal is the immediate focus, many of our economies are also reliant on other fossil fuels, such as oil and gas, and by the way, hard-to-abate sectors, steel, petrochemicals, which will also need to decarbonize. So in our region, there's a strong need to reduce carbon dependency. We must consider just transition in that particular context. So what did we do? We just launched Just Transition Initiative in 2020. It aims to ensure a green economy transition that opens new opportunities for all while protecting vulnerable regions and people from falling behind. We implement this initiative through policy support and investments. And on the investment side, we support investments across, for example, green economy transition, human capital development, and regional economic diversification. In North Macedonia, for example, and you asked me for me to also provide some examples, we are supporting the deployment of solar PV on the site of a former coal mine. And actually I visited that last year. In this and other cases, we also support the plans in establishing partnership with national ministries and education providers to promote access to upskilling and reskilling initiatives and to new types of jobs actually and sustainable livelihoods in the green economy. Another example includes EBRD's participation in a bonds with a Polish utility to finance renewables and grid investments, while also supporting a company-level decarbonization plan and reskilling for the staff in the heavily coal-mined region. On the policy level, we help policymakers to send clear signals to investors via climate policy documents. We also bring together public and private stakeholders for the development and hopefully, I pronounce this right, just transition diagnostics and action plans. We are currently working on this with regional counterparts, again in North Macedonia, but also in countries like Serbia. And these diagnostics help stakeholders understand social economic impacts of decarbonization scenarios, including setting out effects on local labor markets and identifying economic diversification opportunities. But we have raised our ambition level. In 2020, we launched our GET 2.1 approach, setting an ambition of over 50% green investments by 2025. And of course you can argue, is this ambitious enough? When you realize that last year EBRD actually invested in a project of 51% already in the green economy. But this year, you all know it's a year of crisis, and not everything we do, we actually can attach conditionalities, so you will actually see this drop to below 50%. Last year, we also launched our new gender and equality of opportunity strategies, highlighting the nexus between our green and inclusive investments as a key priority for us going forward. The final example, and a great example, particularly because we're here in Egypt, is the Nexus Water, Food, Energy Initiative, the water, and which we are coordinating the energy pillar of with Egypt, which aims to retire 5 gigawatts of inefficient fossil fuel power capacity here in Egypt by 2025 and deploy 10 gigawatts of solar and wind energy by 2028. And actually the initiative addresses 2 of the most common issues that prevent countries from transitioning away from fossil fuels. First, strengthening the energy grid to absorb new capacity and supporting a just transition for affected workers. And this will, ladies and gentlemen, mobilize $500 million for technical assistance, grants, and concessional loans from donors and IFIs to address critical bottlenecks. And importantly, this will include targeted support for workers that are affected by the decommissioning of plants. So EBRD will support the Egyptian Electricity Holding Company, as well as its subsidiaries, suppliers, and public authorities in managing the social impacts of decarbonization strategy by designing and implementing a package of strategic workforce management activities. And I probably should leave it there. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your remarks. I'm so glad you found us. And I appreciate you giving these very concrete examples, especially those in Egypt, right? I think that you mentioning water as an important part of this climate equation is also very meaningful. I'm going to actually just turn to each of you if I can, because in this year's talk, the theme of this year's talk is action, right? And I would love each of you to give me one sentence, 1 minute, on what each of you would think as the action we need that would be the most meaningful to achieve a just transition. Maybe we go down the line and get each one's thoughts very quickly.
Hello?
Action.
It's a really good point because we do talk about this bit, don't we? But I think, we are the UK Treasury with the Finance Department. I think that and this has been a theme of meetings I've been to before, it is looking at the effective ways of leveraging in private investment, right? Because the scale of investment on what we're talking about today, all aspects of net zero is enormous, and I think there's a lot of progress, a lot of really good things happening. I think there's more to be done on that. That's in the G20 as well, G7. And if we achieve that, then we get the scale of investment to make us do it.
So the private sector has to continue to create and invest in scalable solutions that leverage technology to really impact vulnerable communities. I think with the just transition, it's really going to double down on those communities and make sure they're not being left behind. And that's the primary action that a lot of private companies need to make.
Thank you. So I think there are a couple of points. The first one is how can we have proper conversations around supply chains globally? How can we look at the amount of resources that we need going forward, mine them sustainably, process them in an efficient way, in a way that we can localize industry in Africa, create jobs in Africa, and prevent migration from Africa to Europe, because they're all in it. Creating jobs in Africa is a key part of achieving net zero. The second point is how do we build resilient infrastructure that allows us to withstand the impacts of climate change. We have to find a way for us to make Africa less vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. And thirdly, we need financial innovation. Financial innovation for additional access to capital, financial innovation to lower the cost of capital, financial innovation that will allow conservation of forests, provide alternative cooking fuel for the vast majority of Africans, financial innovation that will lead to the implementation of all the work streams that will lead to net zero.
Less than a minute, we have to accelerate whatever we succeeded on by grabbing more and more market segments, more than what we did, and not only in Egypt and beyond, inshallah. Thank you very much.
Look, this year we saw wildfires in France. I have a host. I've been in the country which I'm not seeing often, that is the UK. Actually, at the board management retreat last week, I did wine tasting in the UK. I see many of you laughing. That's all we can have. And they have great wines indeed. But this cannot go on. So I think we all understand the urgency of the problem. What my hope is actually that all the promises we've seen last year in Glasgow, but also much earlier before, that we actually, all the pledges we made, that they come through. And it's not for nothing that we all call this the call of implementation. So let's really try to do what we have promised to. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I wanted to close with a very warm to all your panelists. You've just been on point, and all the examples you've given, but also to the audience and to our host, the government of Egypt, to bring this all together. I think that I'm glad we had moved to action, but it is important to talk and to build this kind of multi-stakeholder collaboration on what we need for economic growth and energy access in many of our countries, and then decarbonization in many others, and to move financing where it's needed most. I think just transition and just finance are topics that are here to stay in the climate agenda, and I really appreciate all of your